You know your HOA's gone rogue when their security officer chucks a brick through your nursery window and it lands on your newborn's head. Yes, a literal brick thrown by a grown man in khakis with a walkie-talkie and a clipboard full of citations for unsightly grass. And if you think that's the worst part, oh no. The worst part is, Karen from the HOA board said, "We deserved it. Let me back up a second. We moved into Sunny Grove Estates. Yeah, the name's ironic. 3 years ago, quiet cul-de-sac, decent schools, nothing fancy. Just a place to settle down and raise our little boy James. I paid the HOA fees like clockwork, kept my lawn tidy, and didn't so much as sneeze past 9 p.m. You know, trying to be a good neighbor. But then came Karen, the kind of woman who takes HOA bylaws more seriously than the Constitution. Newly elected HOA board president, self-proclaimed protector of neighborhood values and the proud owner of a laminated copy of the CCNRs she keeps in her purse like a Bible. It all started when we installed a small wooden pergola in our backyard. Backyard hidden tasteful, but to Karen, it was a violation of the architectural harmony of the community. I laughed when we got the warning notice, thought it was a joke. But no, within a week we were slapped with a $250 fine and a cease and desist letter delivered by a man named Dave who wore a badge that said HOA Compliance Patrol and acted like he had just stepped off the set of Cops. That was the first red flag. The second, when we discovered the HOA had created an entire enforcement department led by Dave, a former mall security guard turned self-declared HOA cop. And the third, that's when the brick came. We filed an appeal against the fine. Apparently appealing a decision in Karen's court is a crime in itself. A week later, Dave showed up again, this time filming us from his HOA-issued golf cart parked across the street from our house, muttering into his walkie-talkie like we were suspects in a federal investigation. It got creepier. He started citing us for excessive leaf accumulation, unapproved wind chimes, and once, I kid you not, for having a politically divisive bumper sticker on my 2007 Toyota. It just said I voted. Then came the day it all exploded, literally. It was a Thursday, I remember, because James had just fallen asleep after one of those long, colicky nights. My wife was folding laundry. I was at the kitchen sink watching Dave's golf cart creep down the street like a beige shark, then crash. The nursery window shattered. I heard my wife scream. I ran barefoot through glass and found my son crying blood on his forehead. Lying next to his bassinet was a red landscaping brick. Yes, one of the decorative ones HOA uses around the clubhouse. Roses. Guess who it came from, Dave? Caught on our doorbell and brick in hand, arm cocked like he was pitching in the bottom of the ninth. Why? Because he claimed our backyard pergola. Yes, the same one we appealed was still standing in defiance of HOA ordinance, and that made us a threat to neighborhood standards. The night of the brick incident, we were in the ER with our baby James, who, thank God, escaped serious injury. Just a small cut, a few stitches, and a CAT scan to rule out anything worse. But it wasn't just James that got hit that day. It was the last straw for me. I remember sitting in that hospital room watching my wife try to nurse our crying baby Glass still in her hair. That's when it clicked. Karen and her little HOA empire had pushed too far. They weren't just annoying anymore. They were dangerous, and they were going to pay. Lucky for us, my brother-in-law, Mark, is an attorney, a good one, the kind that reads HOA bylaws for fun and uses phrases like tortious liability before breakfast. And when I showed him the doorbell, cam footage of Dave launching the brick like he was trying out for the NFL, Mark didn't say a word. He just nodded and said, "We've got him." Karen's biggest mistake. She underestimated two things: that we were keeping receipts, that Mark was bored during his sabbatical. We spent that weekend combing through every single HOA citation we'd ever received. The bogus fines, the warning letters, even the passive-aggressive community courtesy notices Karen loved to send out every month, signed with a smiley face and her title, President Sunny Grove. HOA. We printed them all out, indexed them, labeled them by date and violation type. But here's where things got interesting. We noticed something in the patterns. Certain homeowners, mostly young families, minorities, or folks who dared to vote against Karen in last year's board election, were receiving 2 to 3 times more citations than anyone else. Meanwhile, Karen's friends, 0 violations. Even the guy with the rusted-out RV parked on his lawn had a spotless record. That wasn't just shady. That was discriminatory enforcement, and in legal terms, that's a problem. Mark asked a simple question: where is all the HOA fine money going? Turns out no one had asked that in years. Sunny Grove's annual budget was mailed out in vague, single-page bullet points. But when we dug into the financial reports from the last 3 years, thank you public record request laws, we found something even juicier than we hoped: tens of thousands of dollars in administrative reimbursements with no listed breakdown. Multiple payments to a consultant firm called Greenway Compliance Solutions. And who owned Greenway Compliance? You guessed it, Karen's cousin. And who approved the contract? Karen, in a 3-2 vote on a board of 5 members, 2 of whom were mysteriously absent the day the vote took place. Now, if you've never been to an HOA board meeting, let me tell you, it's not usually exciting. It's people arguing over mailbox colors and lawn heights. But this one, this was different. We showed up with a full binder of evidence. Mark brought copies of our baby's hospital report, the video footage of the brick toss, and a 14-page letter of intent to sue the HOA for negligence, harassment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Karen looked like she had swallowed a lemon whole. At first, she tried to play it off, claimed she wasn't aware of Dave's actions, said she deeply regretted the misunderstanding. But when Mark handed over the footage and the minutes from the board meeting where she voted to expand Dave's enforcement role, the room got real quiet. Even her allies on the board suddenly found urgent reasons to check their phones. Now here's where it gets fun. Mark didn't just want to sue, he wanted reform. See, most HOAs have one fatal weakness. They rely on the residents to not pay attention. But once you start digging and you show up armed with evidence, they fold fast. So we offered Karen a choice. Either we file the lawsuit, go public with the story, and let the media cover how her HOA enforcement injured a newborn, or she resigns. Immediately, Dave is fired. All our fines are dropped, HOA elections are reopened, and a third-party audit of the HOA budget begins next month. She tried to bluff, said the board wouldn't allow it, but then misses. Ramirez, 72 years old, lives 2 houses down, president of the garden club, and not someone you mess with, stood up in the back and shouted, "I move to suspend Karen's authority, pending investigation." The whole room clapped, no joke. A standing ovation, like it was a church revival. Karen stepped down 2 days later. Dave was never seen in the neighborhood again. The HOA brought in an independent accounting firm to go over the books. Surprise. Over $40,000 in fines had been funneled into Karen's cousin's company over 2 years. And once that hit the wider community to newsletter, Karen moved out. The pergola, still standing. Our son James, he just turned 1 last month. Strong, healthy, and probably the only baby in the neighborhood with a court settlement fund named after a landscaping brick. You'd think after publicly resigning in shame and narrowly dodging a lawsuit involving a brick and a baby, Karen would quietly disappear. Maybe move to a condo in Florida, take up pickleball, and learn to let people live. You'd think, but Karen, oh no, she's not the go quietly type. She's the start, a fake Facebook group, and spread conspiracy theories about her own neighbors type. Let me walk you through how Karen tried to claw her way back to power, using sock puppets, scare tactics, and the most passive-aggressive baked goods I've ever received in my life. It started innocently enough. A few months after her resignation, someone launched a new Facebook group called Neighbors United for a Better Sunny Grove, catchy name, patriotic banner photo, and a bio that said, "Supporting traditional values and property rights in our community." Sounded harmless, until you saw the posts. Did you know the new board president is letting people paint their doors? Navy blue now. Backyard chickens today. Low-income housing tomorrow. They say the baby was hit by a brick. But what if I told you it was all a hoax? Yeah, that last one had my wife's name tagged in the comments. Naturally, I reported it, so did half the neighborhood. But before Facebook could act, the group grew to 200+ members. Many of them real people who didn't realize Karen was behind it. Because here's the twist. The group was run by someone named Susan Whitmore. There's just one problem. There is no Susan Whitmore in Sunny Grove, never has been. But there is a Karen Whitmore Samuels, who just so happened to share photos of the exact same tabby cat, Mr. Pickles, on her old HOA profile. She didn't even bother to change the cat. After a few weeks of low-level Facebook trolling, Karen's tactics escalated. We started getting little anonymous flyers in our mailbox. Your neighbors are watching. Let's bring back real standards. Remember who let the weeds in. It was like living in a Hallmark horror movie. Then came the brownies. One morning, a Tupperware of homemade brownies appeared on our porch with a note that said, "For the sweet little boy." No hard feelings. My wife took one look and said, "Nope," straight into the trash. Next day, another note. This time, "Too good for my brownies." Typical. At this point, we knew 2 things for sure. Karen was spiraling too, and she'd found her new weapon of choice, psychological warfare by baked goods and anonymous mailers. Now, Sunny Grove's HOA board had cleaned up pretty well after Karen left new elections, brought in normal, reasonable people, folks who cared about roads and potholes, not whether your bird bath matched your shutters. But Karen wasn't done with them either. She started attending meetings again, not as a board member, just as a concerned resident. The kind who shows up early, sits in the front row with a folder labeled evidence, and asks questions like, has anyone audited the new mulch supplier's political donations? Do we have proof that the new bylaws weren't translated incorrectly into Spanish? Is it true the treasurer's niece is a vegan TikTok influencer? Her goal wasn't to help. It was to sow chaos, and it worked for a while. Meetings started going longer. Neighbors who'd never spoken before were now whispering in corners. Old friendships strained. New paranoia bloomed. She didn't need a title anymore. She had influence again. But the real trouble began when she recruited allies. HOA elections came around again that spring, and suddenly signs started popping up on people's lawns. Write in Susan Whitmore for HOA president. Restore pride, reclaim order. Yes, Susan Whitmore, the same fake identity she used to run the Facebook group. Here's the thing, though. There's no rule in our bylaws that says a write-in candidate must actually exist, just that they must be a homeowner. And since Karen technically still owned a rental property in the neighborhood, it wasn't illegal, just pathetic. But Karen miscalculated one big thing. People may be gullible for a while, but they're not stupid forever. A neighbor named Darnell, retired Navy Sharp as attack, tracked the campaign signs to a local print shop. He asked who placed the order. You guessed it, Karen Samuels, paid in cash but left the pickup signature. K. Whitmore. We presented that to the board the day before election night. Election night was held in the community clubhouse. Folding chairs, bad coffee, and a sea of sun hats and polo shirts. Over 100 people showed up, more than any year before Karen walked in halfway through the meeting wearing a red blazer, waving to people like a small-town mayor. When the floor opened for public comment, she marched up and launched into a dramatic speech. For too long, this community has drifted from its core values. I may have made mistakes, but I only ever tried to uphold standards. If you truly care about Sunny Grove, vote for Susan. At that point, Darnell stood up from the back row and said loud and clear, Karen, there is no Susan. You are Susan. You faked the campaign. You lied to your neighbors. Again, someone gasped. A woman dropped her phone. Karen stood frozen like a deer in headlights. Then came the final blow. The HOA attorney, not Mark this time, but a new guy with a Bluetooth earpiece and legal pad, stepped up and said, we've reviewed the write-in submissions. Susan Whitmore is not a registered owner. Per Article 5, Section 2B, she's ineligible. All votes are disqualified. The room erupted. Cheers, applause. One guy actually shouted, bye, Felicia. Karen stormed out, for real this time. It's been a year since the brick, the brownies, and the fake Facebook uprising. Sunny Grove is finally quiet. The new board is boring, and that's exactly what we wanted. Our pergola is still standing. No more weird citations. The neighborhood now hosts community potlucks instead of public shaming campaigns. And Karen, she sold her rental and moved away. Rumor is she's running for president of another HOA upstate. God help them. I wish I could say this story was one of a kind, but if you've ever dealt with an HOA Karen, you know better. And if you think this saga was wild, wait till you hear what happened when her cousin tried to sue the new board over a basketball hoop. That one, even Mark needed a drink after that mess. If you thought a fake Facebook group and a brick through a nursery window were the end of it, bless your heart. Because just when we thought the neighborhood had healed, just when we thought peace had returned to Sunny Grove Estates, Karen's cousin showed up with a cease and desist lettered over a basketball hoop. You heard me, a portable, adjustable, regulation-size hoop from Dick's Sporting Goods. Apparently that was too much for the delicate eyes of Karen's family tree. So who is Chuck? Well, remember the shady cousin who ran Greenway Compliance Solutions, the one Karen funneled HOA fine money to during her presidency? Yeah, that Chuck. After the financial audit exposed the cozy contract Karen awarded him, Chuck laid low for a while, but then he bought a rental house in Sunny Grove, moved in with the full intention of restoring order to the neighborhood. Let me paint the picture. Cargo shorts, polo shirt tucked in, Bluetooth headset, always blinking. Drives a white Jeep Liberty with neighborhood watch captain. Magnets on both doors, wears aviator sunglasses. At night, Chuck was like if HOA enforcement, married amateur private investigation, and gave birth to a clipboard. It started one sunny Saturday morning. My son James, now a spry toddler who loves anything round and throwable, had just gotten a new Little Tykes basketball hoop. But my teenage niece was visiting and brought over her own real hoop. We wheeled it to the edge of the driveway so she could shoot around and play with the kids on the block. That same afternoon, Chuck strutted down the sidewalk with his phone out filming. Not saying a word, just filming. Next day, a printed letter showed up taped to our door in a plastic sleeve. Professional touch. Dear homeowner, your driveway currently displays an unauthorized recreational structure in violation of Section 43C of the Sunny Grove HOA guidelines. Please remove the basketball hoop within 48 hours or face escalating legal and administrative actions. Sincerely, Chuck Simmons, concerned resident, former HOA consultant, Pride, Peace, Property Values, TM. My wife read it twice, looked up and said, "Who in the Fresh Prince hell is this guy?" I couldn't believe it either. We weren't new to this. We danced this dance before, only last time it involved a brick and a threat to community standards. So I called up my brother-in-law Mark, aka Legal Avenger of Suburbia, and sent him the letter. Mark replied in all caps, "This guy has no authority. He's not on the board. File a formal complaint." But Chuck wasn't done. 2 days later, he filed an official complaint with the actual HOA board, claiming the hoop was a safety hazard, a nuisance, and I quote, encouraging loitering and unsupervised youth gatherings. Sir, it's a basketball hoop on a driveway in a cul-de-sac. Welcome to America. Chuck then sent us a second letter. This time it had a fake letterhead that said Community Legal Enforcement Office. Spoiler alert, it was his home printer. On inside was a notice of pending civil action and a demand that we remove the hoop immediately or face a lawsuit for property devaluation, emotional distress caused to surrounding residents, unauthorized neighborhood recreational programming. That last one made me laugh so hard I nearly dropped the envelope. This time Mark wasn't laughing. He marched down to the next HOA meeting, documents in hand, and presented one Chuck's fake legal threats, his lack of board status or any enforcement authority, a motion to ban non-board member enforcement actions from being issued to residents, and the board unanimously agreed. Chuck got formally censured. HOA speak for, sit down and shut up, but Chuck didn't cower. Oh no, he doubled down and escalated it to county court. Yes, Chuck tried to sue the entire HOA board, claiming they were ignoring clear community violations, and that the board president had personal vendettas against former consultants. You know who the judge was? Judge Harvell, 74 years old, lives one neighborhood over, plays golf with our treasurer. The court date lasted 28 minutes. Chuck showed up with 3 binders and a poster board. The HOA attorney showed up with 2 documents and a latte. Judge Harvell literally said, "Mr. Simmons, I'm not sure you understand how HOA enforcement works or how lawsuits work in general. Case dismissed. With prejudice." Chuck stomped out of that courtroom muttering about an appeal. Never filed one, the basketball hoop still standing. Chuck put his house up for rent, moved back to wherever he came from. His Jeep is still in town sometimes, but it's parked far away now. The HOA tighter rules now. Not on basketball hoops, but on enforcement power. No more rogue citations. All letters must be board approved. All fines transparent. Community decisions only. And James, he makes free throws better than I ever could. Some villains stay defeated, Karen. She's more like glitter in a carpet. No matter how much you vacuum, some of it always comes back. After her cousin Chuck's lawsuit crumbled like a Costco muffin in court, we thought it was finally over, but no. She wasn't finished because this time, Karen took to the skies with a drone. And a garden gnome, yes, this is real life. It started with a buzzing sound. Every evening, right around 6:45 p.m., we'd hear it, a faint mechanical hum, just above the tree line. At first, we thought it was a neighbor's kid playing with a new toy. Then one night we spotted it, a black quadcopter drone hovering in slow, lazy circles above the cul-de-sac. Next night, same time, same drone. Only this time, it paused right over our backyard. Now, I'm not the paranoid type, but when a camera drone stops and hovers over your patio furniture like it's casing the joint, it's time to investigate. My wife grabbed the binoculars. Me, I grabbed a tennis racket, not to hit it, mind you, just to wave it off. But instead of flying away, the drone dipped closer and started circling, like a vulture that smelled non-compliant. Patio cushions. We posted about the drone in the Sunny Grove Facebook group. And oh boy, we weren't the only ones. The Wagners saw it hovering over their koi pond. Mrs. Lindley swore it was scanning her gardenias. And the Thompsons, it hovered over their hot tub while they were in it. That last one almost caused a coronary. Eventually, the HOA board issued a statement. No official HOA-sanctioned drone operations are underway. So who's behind the buzzing? Well, the very next morning, Darnell, our Navy vet neighbor and resident neighborhood hero, saw the drone land in the backyard of a beige ranch house recently reacquired by one Karen Whitmore Samuels. That's right, Karen had moved back in. Turns out after her write-in campaign collapsed and Chuck's legal tantrum backfired, Karen took a 6-month break and reappeared with a new plan. Community compliance from above TM. She called it aerial neighborhood surveying. What she meant was spying on anyone who didn't edge their lawn perfectly or whose trash cans were visible for more than 6 seconds after pickup. She even posted a YouTube video explaining it. As former HOA president, I know what true standards look like. My drone allows for efficient, non-invasive accountability. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Sound familiar? Reminded me of a certain German Shepherd training manual from 1942. Now here's where things really went off the rails. Around this same time, the Ramirez family sweet couple retired. Teachers known for their insane holiday decorations installed a new garden gnome, not just any gnome. This thing was 3 feet tall, solar-powered, and held a tiny flag that said, Home Sweet Gnome. It was adorable, cheesy. Sure, but adorable. Karen. She lost it. She posted a screenshot from her drone feed on Facebook captioned, Visual pollution is still pollution. This monstrosity violates Section 3.1a of the Landscaping Code. Ornamental objects must be in scale and harmonious with surroundings. Yes, she cited scale and harmony to go after a gnome. Within 48 hours, she filed a formal complaint, not through the HOA board, because they wouldn't hear it, but through the county zoning department, the county over a gnome. The next HOA town hall meeting was packed. Standing room only. People were bringing folding chairs and popcorn. Someone even wore a Free the Gnome t-shirt. Karen walked in wearing a beige trench coat, carrying a manila folder, and holding her iPad like it was the Dead Sea Scrolls. She demanded time to speak during the open floor. We are sliding into an aesthetic freefall, she said. Gnomes today, inflatable dragons tomorrow. If you let decorative lawlessness run unchecked, you end up with chaos or worse, declining property values. The room was silent until Mr. Ramirez, bless his heart, stood up and said, Karen, it's a gnome. It doesn't even move. You're the only chaos here. Then Darnell added, besides, I measured it. It's under 4 feet. Section 3.1a doesn't apply unless it's 4 feet or taller. Mic drop. Karen turned bright red, mumbled something about interpretive height, and stormed out. After the gnome embarrassment, things unraveled fast. The county sent Karen a very polite letter reminding her that private drone surveillance for HOA enforcement was not authorized and might violate local privacy ordinances. A neighbor, not me, but I'd buy them a coffee, filed a complaint about drone harassment. The HOA board issued a resolution banning non-board drone activity over residential property. And her drone, let's just say one day during a wind advisory, it accidentally crash-landed into a hedge. I'm not saying it was held down, but the timing was suspiciously perfect. As for the gnome, he's still standing. He even got a little friend, a second gnome that says stay strong. Karen finally gave up, sold her house again. This time she moved out of state. Rumor says she joined the board of an HOA in Arizona and is currently trying to ban hammocks Godspeed Grand Canyon. Here in Sunny Grove, the air is quieter, the lawns are greener, and the gnomes, they are thriving. James has a new hobby now. Naming them, there's Gnomer Simpson, Gnome Chomsky, and one called Karen, which ironically has a broken drone taped to its hand. If you've followed this saga from the pergola panic to the drone patrols and garden gnome warfare, you're probably thinking there's no way it gets crazier. Oh, my sweet summer viewer, because just when we thought the Karen era was finally over, we got a call from the new owner of Karen's old house and what they found in that backyard. Let's just say it wasn't a swimming pool. It wasn't a bomb shelter. It was weirder than both. It was a Tuesday. I was sipping my morning coffee, enjoying the peaceful silence. Karen used to ruin every morning with her compliance jogs. Yes, she power walked with a clipboard. My phone buzzed, caller ID unknown. I let it go to voicemail. But a few minutes later, I saw the transcript. Hi, this is Joel. I just bought Karen Samuel's old place on Maple Drive. There's something in the backyard. I think you might want to see this. My curiosity, of course, immediately went nuclear. I walked over Joel, early 30s, Beard flip-flops, looked like he sold artisan soap on. Etsy greeted me nervously at the gate. So, we were pulling weeds along the fence line and noticed this weird rectangular patch. Looks like someone had been digging here and covering it up again. The dirt's different. Now listen, I'm not a detective, but I have watched enough true crime podcasts to know that's suspicious. He handed me a shovel, and let me tell you, nothing brings two neighbors together faster than mildly illegal backyard excavation. After about 20 minutes of digging, the shovel hit something solid plastic. A large storage bin. Joel and I exchanged looks. He cracked the lid open, and inside it was filled to the brim with laminated HOA violation forms, some with our names on them. Dozens of labeled manila folders with handwritten tabs like fence height violations, 2022, a half-burned copy of the Sunny Grove HOA bylaws. And the creepiest thing, a spiral notebook titled Behavioral Notes. Residents inside the notebook. Karen had been documenting us, yes by name, with notes. Sample entry from mine. April 14th, left trash bins out until 11:27 a.m. Seems unbothered. Possible repeat offender. There were pages of this. Joel looked like he wanted to sage the yard, but it didn't stop there. About 10 feet away, under a pile of mulch and decorative stones, we found something else. A small wooden shed locked. Joel had the real estate key for it. We popped it open. Inside, 17 garden gnomes, all arranged in a semicircle, surrounding a laminated photo of the HOA board. It was like a ceremonial tribunal of gnome justice, or a claymation version of The Godfather. Joel and I just stood there in silence. Is this like art? He asked. This is Karen, I replied. Nothing she does qualifies as art. By now we had a tub full of resident dossiers, a secret gnome cult, and physical evidence that Karen had been surveilling the neighborhood in person long before the drone. We called the HOA board. They showed up within the hour, phones out, taking pictures, probably wondering if they'd end up on Dateline. Our treasurer, Judy, bless her bluntness, said, "This is either the saddest hobby I've ever seen or the beginning of a Lifetime movie." The board voted it on the spot to seal and store the documents in the HOA archive. Yes, that's a real thing now. Permanently bar Karen from running for any board position, and my favorite, add a clause to the HOA code banning personal compliance record keeping on other residents. Karen got her own bylaw, not the legacy she wanted. I'm sure Joel has since converted the shed into a potting station. He kept one gnome, the one holding binoculars, named it Mini Karen. Said it's for irony. My son James is now plays basketball like a mini Steph Curry and just helped me paint our brand new pergola. Bright red HOA approved the drone gone the brick in a shadow box in our garage because we believe in trophies. And Karen, last I heard, she's attempting to run for a county beautification committee in Arizona. Someone emailed me a photo of her flyer, the slogan, "Standards Matter." And now I have to ask you, dear viewer, what would you have done if you found a hidden tub full of neighborhood behavior notes? Have you ever dealt with a Karen or Chuck in your neighborhood? Drop a comment below. I read every one. Whether it's your worst HOA horror story, your sneakiest revenge move, or just a gnome name suggestion. I want to hear it, like if you think gnomes deserve rights. Subscribe if you've ever received a passive-aggressive note taped to your trash can. And remember, if your neighbor owns a drone and a clipboard, you might want to install a privacy fence.